All right, let's get into it. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a secret war that's playing out right now, all across the world's oceans. It's this incredible, high-stakes game of hide and seek, and it all revolves around this mysterious armada people are calling the Shadow Fleet.
And just to show you how high the stakes are, look at this. When a Russian tanker gets seized, Vladimir Putin calls it an act of piracy. This tells you right away we're not just talking about shipping logistics. We're talking about drone strikes, naval seizures. Things are getting seriously heated.
And this isn't ancient history. This is all happening right now. You've got Ukraine hitting Russian tankers with sea drones. You have the US Navy grabbing a tanker in the middle of the Atlantic, France seizing another one in the Med, and then a full-on US naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical shipping lanes on the planet. This whole situation is escalating fast.
So what is driving all of this? What's the big secret? Well, it all comes down to this idea of the Shadow Fleet.
Now, Shadow Fleet isn't just some cool, spooky name somebody made up. It's actually got an official definition from the International Maritime Organization, and they basically describe it as a network of ghost ships, vessels whose entire purpose is to operate outside the law. Their main job? Busting sanctions for countries like Iran, Venezuela, and of course Russia.
And the sheer scale of this is, well, it's just mind-boggling. By late 2023, Russia alone is thought to have cobbled together a ghost armada of up to 1,400 ships. Think about that. That's more than a threefold jump in just over a year, all in a desperate attempt to keep its oil flowing out to the rest of the world.
So the big question is, how do you make a giant oil tanker? I mean, these are some of the biggest machines on Earth. How do you make one just disappear? Well, they've gotten pretty clever about it. Turns out there's a devious four-step playbook. First, the ships go dark. They just switch off their tracking systems. Poof, they're off the map. Next, they do these secretive ship-to-ship transfers way out in the middle of the ocean to hide where the oil really came from. Third, they hide who owns the ship behind this crazy maze of shell companies, constantly changing its name, its flag. And finally, they just forge all the documents to make the whole illegal operation look totally legit.
And this is where it gets really wild, almost like something out of a spy movie. It's called spoofing. For example, analysts have literally watched a tanker physically leaving a port in Iran while its digital tracker signal was broadcasting that it was actually leaving a port in Saudi Arabia. It is a massive digital sleight of hand.
So these fleets are literally designed from the ground up to be invisible. But that doesn't mean they can't be found. You can hunt ghosts, and the hunt is on.
And what this has kicked off is this incredible high-tech game of cat and mouse. You've got the shadow fleets on one side with all their tricks, and on the other, you have nations and investigators throwing every single tool they have at the problem to track these ships down.
Now, the hunters aren't relying on just one thing. It's all about connecting the dots. They're using AI to analyze tracking data for any weird behavior. They're watching the skies with satellites. They're using drones. They're digging through port records and financial data, basically fusing intelligence from everywhere to get a clear picture. And here is a real game changer in the hunt. When a ship goes dark and turns off its AIS tracker, that's when something called synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, kicks in. These are satellites that can see right through clouds and even see in total darkness. So you can turn off your digital beacon, but they can still see your physical ship sitting out there on the water. There's nowhere to hide. And the hunt isn't just happening from above. It's going underwater, too. They're deploying these advanced autonomous drones, like the REMUS 600M. This thing can stay submerged for a whole day, scanning everything. It's all part of this new military concept called manned-unmanned teaming. Basically, having warships and robotic drones work together to create this constant surveillance network.
So okay, it's a super fascinating, high-tech game of hide-and-seek out on the ocean. But why should we care? Well, it turns out the stakes involved with these shadow fleets are incredibly high, not just for the countries involved, but for every single one of us.
Just look at the difference here. A legit, regulated tanker, it's usually pretty new. It has solid insurance from a company you can trust, and you know who owns it. A shadow tanker, on the other hand, it's often an ancient rust bucket, sailing under some flag you've never heard of, with shady insurance, if it has any at all. They are, to put it simply, floating time bombs.
And get this number is just shocking. A full 2/3 of the ships carrying Russian oil have insurance that's classified as unknown. Let that sink in. That means if one of these old ships breaks apart and causes a massive oil spill,
there might be nobody to foot the bill for the cleanup.
So this all boils down to three huge risks. First, you've got the environmental one, the constant threat of a catastrophic oil spill. Second, you have the economic risk of sanctions being completely undermined. And third, maybe the scariest one, is the risk of military escalation. The idea that one of these drone strikes or seizures could accidentally spiral into a much, much bigger war.
All right, let's quickly pull all these pieces together and look at what we've really learned about this secret war playing out on our seas.
So, what's the bottom line? Shadow fleets are these huge, secret networks of ships breaking international law. They use all sorts of sneaky tactics to hide. But a massive, high-tech hunt is on to find them, using everything from satellites to AI. And the reason this all matters so much is that these fleets are a massive risk to our environment, our economy, and honestly, to global peace.
Which really leaves us with one final, pretty chilling question. When you have hundreds of aging, uninsured tankers operated by mystery companies, all scurrying around in the dark, is the next global disaster really a question of if, or is it just a question of when?